So one concern folks might have in having conversations about, say, firearm storage is that the person you're speaking with just isn't going to buy into it. Were there any tools or metaphors that you used that helped you get buy-in from the person you're speaking with?
Yeah, I think there were two that I found particularly helpful. One was first, if a friend was drinking, would you want them to have access to a firearm, or would you want them to have access to their keys? So we kind of take these preventative measures of taking our friends' keys, or maybe not having like a lethal method around them just in case an accident happens, and then kind of pivoting that to say like, okay, so what do you kind of do in a similar situation when you're in a situation like that? And another example I think was really helpful was if they had kids in the home or kids that would come over. I think a lot of the times people would say, well, my kids know not to touch the firearm, or they don't know where it's at. And I would ask, when you were a kid, when your parents said that to you, were you ever curious about where things were? Or did you kind of look around in your parents' rooms, or get into things maybe you shouldn't have? And they were like, well, yeah. And so I think that also kind of made them realize that even though their kids may know not to touch the firearm, that it still is a potential possibility that they might.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I would use when talking about like why it's helpful to have a plan in case of like if you were to become suicidal, like having a what if plan is what we would call it a lot of the time, is like if our house is on fire, a lot of the times we have a plan where we're going to meet our family in case of a house fire, and we never plan on using that. We hope we never have to use it, but we still have it in place in case, God forbid, something does happen. And so kind of using that to pivot into talking about, well, similarly with firearms, we don't ever expect or want someone we love or ourselves to become suicidal or to a point where we shouldn't have access to that. But it's good for us to have thought through what we would do in those scenarios and how we can ensure our safety and the safety of those around us. So that's one that I used and I think kind of helped to, especially when you're talking about the hypothetical, what if this thing happens, make it more like concrete and make more sense.